Justice Newby probably doesn't need an introduction. He's a senior associate justice in the North Carolina Supreme Court. He graduated from Duke University and from the University of North Carolina Law School. Judge Newby has won numerous professional awards, and he's co-authored a book on the North Carolina Constitution. He is also currently serving as the chair of the Chief Justice's Commission on Professionalism. Justice Newby?
I'm so honored to be with you. 38 years ago, I sat where you sit, and I was the first of my family to be a lawyer. Some of you are first. Some of you have family members who are attorneys. Perhaps you know a bit more about the profession. Some of you are like I, first lawyers that anyone in your family can remember. We call those newbies, and we like them, okay, just to let you know. Esse quam videre, to be rather than to seem. That is the state motto. What does it mean to truly be a lawyer? What does it mean to be a member of a profession and not just simply a job? Today, when you take your oath, which, by the way, we've been doing oaths since 1777. I was a small child. I remember it well. It's like, wow, why are these people not just doing their job? Why are they stopping and taking this oath? Actually, we adopted that tradition from England, and a person who was allowed to take an oath was someone who was considered to be trustworthy, hence an oath. Their statement would bind them, and if they were deemed not capable of taking an oath, then they were outside the law, outlaws. The concept is that before all the witnesses here, as well as before Almighty God, that each of you will live up to the ideals of the profession. Well, what are these ideals? What are we talking about? Each of us has an incredibly wonderful opportunity because we are the protectors of the fundamental rights and freedoms of all Americans. Prior to our Declaration of Independence, if you look at the history of the world, those who had power told everybody else what their rights were or weren't, and if people disagreed, they would die. Government had power, they enforced it. If our rights don't come from King George or some human authority, what is the source of those rights? Jefferson said it like this: we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all are created equal and endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights: life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. We call that property rights as well. And government is instituted among men, Jefferson said, to protect these fundamental rights and freedoms. Well, how is that done? What does that look like? We, the attorneys, the lawyers of North Carolina, have the privilege every day in every aspect of our practice to protect fundamental rights and freedoms, to allow our fellow citizens to exercise these incredible freedoms that we as Americans enjoy, and to ensure that we are a government not of whims or an establishment not of favorites, but the rule of law. Everyone treated the same. You'll recall the symbol of our justice system is Lady Justice, and she's blindfolded. She cannot see who comes before her. The richest, the poorest, the most powerful, the least powerful, everyone is treated the same. I was giving a similar speech to a class of fifth graders, and I had one of the fifth graders come up to me and say, "Hey, Justice Newby, what's it like to wear a blindfold all day at work?" He understood the concept. We, the lawyers, and yes, we, the judges, have the significant responsibility of being sure that everyone who encounters our legal system is treated with the utmost respect and dignity and the same. Everyone to be treated the same. And it is the law, not personal ideas. It's the law that governs these relationships. We as attorneys, as we go about to do this, how can we fulfill this obligation? I congratulate you on passing a very difficult bar. Of course, you know, if you look at the 2-day bar this year versus 1980, it was a 3-day bar. You know, I'm just saying. But you have the distinction of passing the last North Carolina-focused bar. Congratulations on that. From here on, our state has adopted the uniform bar exam. Now, there's some benefits to that, with that being the scores you can carry to other states, and it, I think, recognizes the fluidity of even the legal profession now. Granted, the supervision of the profession will continue to be state-focused. But I congratulate you on that. But as you think about this oath that you're fixing to take, I want you to think about what I consider the 3 pillars of professionalism. It actually comes from the motto of the Air Force Academy. It begins with integrity first. Today, many of you, no doubt, are celebrating the birthday of Rutherford B. Hayes. For those that don't know, he was the 19th President of the United States. Very contentious election. He did not win the popular vote, and it was very uncertain whether he would be given the presidency over Governor Tilden based on the contested electoral college votes. Both men, in reaction to what had ultimately been a great deal of corruption, financial improprieties in the prior administration, ran on platforms of integrity first. Sadly, there was a commission that ultimately deciphered some of the emails, no, not back in 1876, but what they had, which they would send telegrams in code. And although there were like 350 telegrams that were sent, they were able to capture maybe 90 or 100 of them and decode them. And lo and behold, they found that Governor Tilden's nephew offered tens of thousands of dollars to the electors in the disputed states. You know, it never went to trial by any sense other than the public perception. But my belief is that's why, although he won the popular vote, that's why I don't think he was a candidate again, because of the impact that that had on his integrity or the public view. What is integrity? I would submit that integrity is much more akin to character as opposed to reputation. Reputation is what other folks see about you. Integrity is who you are when nobody else is looking. And if you are doing the way you're supposed to do when nobody else is looking, or you think, then I believe when folks are looking, it's just going to be natural for you to do the right thing. Integrity is like an island surrounded by cliffs. If you fall off, it is so, so difficult to get back on. I submit there is not one client or one fee that is worth risking the rest of your career and, frankly, your good name. It always honored me when I practiced law and I had the opportunity to deal with lawyers who were true professionals, and they would tell me something about a discovery deadline or about a deposition date or time, and we didn't have to put anything in writing. We'd take it to the bank, absolutely. And yet there were others and you quickly learn who those are, that you got to get it in writing. Don't be that kind. Be the kind of person whose word is your bond. And folks know that. Integrity first. Service before self. I'm going to share with you a story, and in complete candor to the tribunal, I'll say I'm not absolutely sure that this happened the way I'm going to share it, but I like it so much I'm going to share it anyway. It was 1776, and the American Army, 1775, the American Army was trying to work on its having surrounded Boston. They were trying to dig in the various entrenchments that needed to be done. And all of the Army were just volunteers. And nobody had any kind of real training about how to do this. And there was one young lieutenant who was just yelling at his volunteers. Clearly, nobody was going to dig the trenches and do it the way that it was supposed to be done. The more he yelled, the less his men did. And it was getting toward dusk, and an older gentleman came along, and he saw what was going on, and he asked the young lieutenant, he said, "Sir, do you mind if I get down and help your men with these entrenchments?" And the lieutenant said, "Oh, they're a sorry bunch. They're not going to do anything, but do what you can." Anyway, several hours later, the men had successfully and properly built the entrenchments. The elderly gentleman got on his horse, and George Washington said to this young lieutenant, "Young man, you let me know if your authority ever gets in the way of your service." I think it's a great story because it's service before self. You know, you have, by your status as a lawyer, you have one of the most envied and dignified positions in our society. And the question is, are you going to live up to it? It's great to have degrees. It's great to be smart enough to have passed the bar. But can you turn that into service before self? I'm so proud of our state and the folks in Eastern North Carolina that are reaching out to that devastated area. Folks putting aside their making money simply to go and serve those folks. And yet, to some degree, I'm saddened by this. The Chief Justice yesterday entered an order allowing out-of-state attorneys for the next 90 days to come in and help the people of Eastern North Carolina because, sadly, frankly, we haven't had enough North Carolina volunteers to help. That grieves me for our profession, and as a North Carolinian, I'm grateful that there are others who are willing to do that. But please, as you think about it, there are so many demands on you. And as you get older, spoiler alert, it doesn't get easier. But please, think about service before self. Integrity first, service before self, excellence in all that you do. I've had the privilege of serving on the Supreme Court for 14 years. Every opinion, I was working on one before I came over here this morning, or this afternoon too. Every opinion goes through 15, 20 drafts, sometimes 30 or 35. Every word, every phrase, every sentence, every paragraph needs to convey as best we can with the English language what we're trying to say. Every one of those opinions began with the name Justice Newby. I've got to be able to look back and be comfortable with everything that I said in those opinions. And I submit to you the same is true with everything you file as an attorney, every oral presentation you make to the court. Be sure that you are doing it with excellence. We owe that to the people, whether it is the way you treat opposing counsel or the way you treat your client, whether it's with your preparation, or whether it's in your representation or even your personal interactions. I love the idea of treat others the way that you would like to be treated. You need to be sure that you're working with excellence in all that you do. Integrity first, service before self, excellence in all you do. Again, congratulations. I hope that when you have practiced law for 38 years and you have the privilege of standing before a group like this, that you can look back over your career and say, you know, I have practiced integrity, service, and excellence. Thank you.